Osage elders somberly bury a ceremonial pipe, mourning their descendants' assimilation into white American society. Wandering through their Oklahoma reservation, which features the yearly flower moon phenomenon of larger plants killing off smaller ones around May, several Osage find oil gushing from the ground. The tribe becomes wealthy as it retains mineral rights and members share in oil lease revenues, though law requires court-appointed guardians to manage the money of full and half-blood members, assuming them incompetent. In 1919, Ernest Burkhart returns from World War I to his rancher uncle William King Hale. His brother Byron also lives with Hale on his large reservation ranch. The brothers, in masks, commit armed robbery of Osage people. Hale, a reserve deputy sheriff popularly called King, poses as a friendly benefactor of the Osage, speaking their language and bestowing gifts upon them, but he secretly schemes to murder them and steal their wealth. He tells Ernest, who works as a cab driver, to court Molly Kyle, an Osage whose family owns oil head rights. A romance eventually develops, and the two are married in a ceremony mixing Catholic and Osage elements. Hale tells Ernest he will inherit more head rights if more of Molly's family dies. Her mother Lizzie Q is ill. Hale plans the deaths of several wealthy Osage. After Molly's sister Minnie dies of a mysterious illness, Hale has her other sister, the rebellious Anna, killed by gunshot. Lizzie blames the reservation's white residents, as does an Osage council, which urges the tribe to fight back. Lizzie dies in her bed, envisioning her ancestors welcoming her to the afterlife. A newsreel of the 1921 Tulsa race riot, in which whites destroyed a thriving Black Wall Street and killed numerous people, is shown in a reservation movie theater. Ernest has 2 children with Molly, whom he loves. Nevertheless, Hale persuades Ernest to poison Molly by drugging her insulin, though Ernest sometimes swallows the poison himself. Molly suffers Minnie's wasting illness. Ernest botches arranging another murder, so Hale brutally paddles him. Hale also orders the death of Henry Roan, Molly's first husband, to collect on his life insurance, and has Ernest order the murders of Rita, Molly's last remaining sister, and her husband, by blowing up her house. Molly inherits all her family's head rights. The local sheriff and judges are corrupt and no investigations are made. An Osage Nation representative seeking to lobby Congress is murdered in Washington, D.C. Molly hires William J. Burns, a private detective, but he is beaten and chased away from the reservation by a gang of thugs led by Ernest. Although ill, Molly travels to Washington with an Osage delegation and begs President Calvin Coolidge for help. The Bureau of Investigation, BOI, sends Agent Thomas Bruce White Sr. and assistants. They quickly ascertain the truth. Hale tries to cover his tracks by murdering several of his own hired killers, but White arrests him and Ernest. The agents find Molly severely ill but get her proper medical care. White pressures Ernest into a confession and persuades him to turn state's evidence against Hale. W.S. Hamilton, Hale's attorney, then tries to convince Ernest to claim he was tortured and recant. After one of his daughters dies of whooping cough, Ernest decides to follow through with testifying against his uncle. Hale unsuccessfully tries to have Ernest murdered. Molly meets with Ernest a last time, but leaves him when he will not admit to poisoning her. The filmed report for a radio show provides an update. Ernest and Hale were convicted and received life sentences. Both were paroled after many years of incarceration, despite protests to the parole board by the Osage. Byron served no prison time, due to a hung jury. The Shawn brothers, who had given Ernest poison to administer to Molly along with insulin and were implicated in other wasting deaths, were not prosecuted for lack of evidence. Molly divorced Ernest after the trial. She remarried and died of diabetes, aged 50 in 1937. She was buried with her family. Parents, sisters and daughter. Her obituary did not refer to the Osage murders. The last scene, shown from overhead, shows numerous Osage celebrating their surviving culture in a large tribal dance.